for the next half of the day. I'd like to ask our first speaker for this afternoon to come up on stage. He is the Chief Executive Officer for the Vivaldi Partners, and he's also an author of Hidden in Plain Sight and Brand Leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, Erich Joachimsthaler.
Good afternoon. I want to thank everyone really for staying right after this session, right after lunch, and to join us for a discussion on challenger brands. Challenger brands is a fantastic question to grapple with as us in the advertising community. Challenger brand is something, there is real change and there are real consequences, regardless in what business you are or regardless in what industry you work. I will first have the opportunity of providing some remarks, some slides that I have prepared to set up this particular session. And then after that, I will have a very distinguished panel that will be able to answer all the questions and all the issues, address all the issues that I have not done myself very well. I want to distinguish between disruption and deep dive, two very significant phenomena in terms of how companies compete today. You know, when you think about how challenger brands developed over all these years, this picture here is a picture from 1956. When the first Toyota cars arrived in Long Beach, California, around Los Angeles, 1956. This was one of those first challenger brands. Toyota came with this car called Toyota. It was a car that had not very much quality. It was a car that was ridiculed in America as sub-quality by everyone in the industry and consumers. When that car rolled off those boats in 1956, they tested it, the Japanese tested that car on Highway 1, which is a road between Los Angeles and San Francisco. In those days, that road was quite bumpy. And what happened when the first cars rolled off and traveled up that Highway 1 to San Francisco, these cars tended to flip upside down. The reason was because their suspension was of such inferior quality that most of us are more familiar with suspension in horse wagons rather than actual cars. In America, everybody laughed about these cars and said they are like tortillas. Tortilla is that Spanish omelette that is upside down, because all of those cars never made it to San Francisco. A year later, the next boat arrived in Long Beach, California, and the quality was slightly better. And a year later, and a year later, and 10 years later, every year the Japanese would come with another boat and with another collection of cars. And every year the cars would get better. And slowly we realized in America that there was something happening far bigger than inferior quality products from Japan. In fact, over 20, 30 or 40 years, this car became the best quality car in America, would beat every American car and even every German car on every rankings and every ratings that exist in the automotive industry. It took the Japanese 30 or 40 years to do that, to become #1 in America, a challenger brand that took so long. And I want to show, and I believe that that was the story from 1956, the last 50 years. And I believe what you see today, whether you live in Egypt, You live in Russia, you live in the United States, in Japan, or anywhere in the world. You see a new form of branded competitors. They don't come with cheap quality. They come with real quality, good quality. They don't take 30 years. They take 3 years. And I want to show some of these examples, and hopefully we learn some lessons of what really change means in this industry, or your industry, and the consequences they have for building strong brands and competing in our business of advertising and marketing. In the old days, we tended to think about marketing and advertising from a product perspective. Toyota was this company that says, we are better at lean production. We are better at quality initiatives. We perfect how to produce a quality car. We know what the consumer wants. We are engineers. There is this mindset in many industries today, and for many years in the past, that product benefits, improvement of product benefits, investments in technology and engineering will help you to compete in markets today. You think about this. Lots of companies compete successfully in this. Think about BMW. BMW from my country, Germany, BMW is hugely successful in bringing us the most best and absolute ultimate technologies into cars and compete in the premium space, and nowadays in every other space. They even produce things like the iDrive. If you know, for example, the iDrive, if you've ever driven a 7 Series BMW, an iDrive is a stick shift that has 700 programmable features on it. Now, some people might like to compete or drive on a highway, maybe German highway at 220 miles per hour, trying to program the stick shift. But for most people, that is engineering in search of a problem. For most people, that is engineering going wild. This is one way we can compete. Engineers say, consumers cannot know what they have not experienced. We know what consumers want. We are consumers. We study consumers. And that is the mindset of many times a market leader, not a challenger for that. Another perspective is what I call a consumer needs perspective. This is what I call the yellow zone. A consumer needs perspective are the kind of people like you and me. The marketing people. We say, we know consumers. We do marketing research. We study consumers. Consumers is something that is part of our company. We say we are consumer-centric. But truly, are we really consumer-centric? Does it really mean that if we study consumers or invest in marketing research, we truly understand consumers? I would think not so. A colleague of mine, in fact not a colleague, a client of mine, who is now the CEO of Ford Motor Company, his name is Alan Mulally. He used to be my client at Boeing Corporation. He is one of those people over there, the real engineering mindset. He launched the 777 Boeing, an amazing airplane. He is the one, he one day told me, and I was the consultant to Mr. Alan Mulally. He says, what's the problem with you marketing people? I said, what's the problem? Since he is my client, I'm the consultant, I kept smiling. He says, what's the problem with you guys? Marketing people and advertising people. We try much harder to be understood than to understand. And I thought, wait a moment. There is something true to that. We try to simplify things to a consumer insight. We try to make it very simple. What do you stand for? in a single word, in a single sentence, something that we can communicate in a quick advertising commercial, or maybe at something over the digital channels in the attention span of 1.1 seconds or less, or something like that. You know, in a way, my question is, are we really understanding consumers from this perspective, or are we just more so pretending it? And I think market leaders compete either in the red zone or in the yellow zone. But there is a new competitor, and that new competitor says something very different. It's not enough just to have a consumer insight. It's not enough just to have great technology. You don't compete on technology in this open world. It's not enough just to understand consumers. There is something much more deeply that we need to achieve. I call this the green zone. And the green zone is really trying to understand what matters to consumers. You know, and what matters to consumers, Mark Pritchard said it in a different word just in the last session, is really to help improve people's life. No, we are not in the business of differentiation through better technology and better advertising messages. No, we are not in the red zone of seeking differentiation. How many brands can really differentiate in a category where you compete with 5, 10, 20 other competitors? How do you differentiate a car, for that matter in America, when there are 200 cars, you know, traveling on the road, and all that matters to consumers is a damn good quality car? You can get that from Germany, you can get that nowadays also from America, from the remaining car companies, and you can get that in Korea. You can get that from anywhere. How do you compete on differentiation? Is it possible that we chase a romantic dream of differentiation through technology, disrupting competitors? How many companies are really disrupting? You know, once in a while, maybe Apple, Steve Jobs. Same thing with consumer insights. You know, try it with a consumer insight. Even if you come up with a consumer insight, how much life you have, how much business you can build on a consumer insight that consumers like pure water. You know, how long can you last with this particular business proposition? I venture not very much. You know, not in this day and age. The answer is fundamentally on this chart. The answer is to change the equation away from relevance in consumers for consumers, or differentiation, the ultimate objective, we say, of branding. The real challenge is to start here with a very new perspective. As Mark Pritchard says, you know, we need to start thinking about how do we improve people's lives? How do we solve something for them? Enable people to do things, deliver real value, help manage their lives, fit into their lives. From the research that I have done, I have come to believe what a new challenger mindset is all about. These brands that beat industries and competitors in their own game. They understand not consumer insight. They understand the entire complexity of the consumer, the context in which a consumer lives. The consumer insight is merely good enough for a particular 30-second commercial or other communication. But what you really need to understand to create a sustainable business and challenger brand is to understand the ecosystem. You know, when you think about it, if you look at that world of the red zone, if you look at that engineering world, the engineering world is nothing else than having your product tucked under the arm and says, I have developed this great car, and you're in search of consumers. You're going out there and you say, you know, I have this great product, let me segment the markets. If you are in the yellow zone and you think about consumer benefits, you're doing the same thing from a marketing perspective. You're trying to look with your product tucked under the arm and segment consumers and trying to find consumers. You know, it is an inside mindset. It's an inside-out mindset of the world. And it is a world where you try to optimize in some way or the other the value chain of your own company. It is a company perspective, regardless how we call it. You call it customer centricity? I don't think it is. I think it is company centricity. You're trying to optimize your throughput, your value chain from engineering, production, design, all the way to market. And you do that with marketing or engineering. This perspective of understanding the ecosystem is very different. It's an outside-in perspective. It is not about optimizing the value chain of your company, improvement of your market research, better returns on your advertising. This is about understanding the consumer first and trying to improve the economics of the individual. This is how challenger brands compete. You know, every person, you and I, all of us, live every day 1,440 minutes. All of us, from midnight to midnight. And in this 1,440 minutes, you know, we have a particular set of goals. I need to take my children to school. I need to bring them to the dance event. I need to bring them to the soccer court. I have a certain process that I use in order to do that. I make reservation on Zipcar. I get my car from the garage, and so forth and so forth. I have to make a certain decision in order to manage my daily life. And I hire a certain set of products and services. Now that mindset is very different. This is not the value chain from production to engineering to design to marketing and sales. Let's think about this perspective. How do we optimize how people around the world, regardless where they live, how do we optimize their ecosystem? I think this is where the starting point is of a challenger brand and how they compete in the market. Think of Flip. Flip is a challenger brand, you know, very different, unlike Toyota. Flip is a 3-year-old product. It's a video camera. Yes, it comes at a low price, but it's a very basic camera. Oh, by all quality standards, this particular launch in 2007 didn't really satisfy the impeccable tastes of the engineers at Sony and other major companies. This particular brand, in fact, actually was too inferior quality for their taste. Well, it wasn't inferior quality for their taste. It allowed to do one thing in particular. You know what it allowed you to do? It allowed you to make a video, and in 6.7 seconds, allowed you to take that video and load it up on YouTube or into your own video library. In 6.7 seconds. You don't need a cable. There's actually a USB port in order to do that. Now, you say, in terms of picture quality, it actually is at 48 pixels, just about a quarter the quality what you would get of one high-end camera for $1,500 over. This one costs $185. But the price point is not important. The point was that you could carry this thing that is about the size of a cigarette box anywhere you wanted. You could shoot a video anywhere you wanted, and within a second, 6.7 seconds, you had that video up on YouTube. You could send it to your friends. You know, how is that for a miracle thing? Try that with your $1,500 camera. It won't work that way. You need a particular cable. You know, there are different connections and so forth. You actually have to program your whole camera and then your computer in order to make it happen. Now, here is a challenger situation. They didn't take 30 years to become market leader. In 3 years, they became the market leader in the video camera business in America. 3 years, 34% market share, 4 million units sold. Pure Digital is the company. That's the kind of market leader we see. Good enough quality, very great accessible price, but millions and millions of people can buy them. You don't have to figure out a lot of things. It integrates perfectly in consumers' daily life, you know, because I always work on the computer. So it's easy. Skype certainly is not the best telecommunication technology. But today, in 5 years, this particular technology has 450 million subscribers. Martin Sorrell talked this morning about China Telecom as having how many? 600 million subscribers. Well, I bet against Martin Sorrell here, I bet that Skype will be the a bigger brand than China Telecom. You know? And they will do that at no cost. You know, they already have 450 million subscribers. And you know, if any one of those subscribers is like me, I do everything on Skype. It's everywhere I go. It's in my hotel room, it's in my office, it's in my home. And actually, I do video at the same time as I do voice, I do conference call, I make everything over Skype. You know, that's not just a mobile phone technology. That's a lot more. It totally integrates in how we live in our life. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost anything. And that's the beauty of Skype. We mentioned earlier this morning also in one conference called Nano from Tata. $2,500. I presented that slide in Germany the other day. There were auto executives in that audience and they ridiculed me. They said, "Oh, Erich, have you ever ridden this kind of car?" I think that is precisely beyond the point. If you understand the ecosystem and of consumers, of how consumers live this day and age, around the world, not in privileged Germany, you know, with particular type of cars and particular type of highways. But if you live around the world, the $2,500 Nano is a true challenger, somebody that truly understands what really consumers need. You know, think about this one. They call it in East Africa the Obama beer. It's called Senator Kek. You know, Obama beer competed in a new way. They said, we are not competing against the best brands of all. We are competing against non-consumption. We are competing against illegal alcohol. You know, alcohol that is supplemented with battery acid, methanol, and other things. This, if we compete at that level, we can actually compete. Now, what's the innovation? From the engineering perspective, there is none. From the high horses of engineering, BMW, design, and whatever, nothing new. From the marketing perspective, your consumer insight, I don't know, what's the consumer insight? From none of those really count. What really counts is how East Africans live around beer. And if you understand that context again, you understand why that is successful. They needed to do a few things. First of all, they needed to change distribution. They needed to actually use a shadow economy, we would call in the Western world, in order to get that beer distributed. They needed to arrange some changes of the laws, the governmental laws, in order to make that happen. It's a runaway success. See, here's the point. We have got to stop thinking about quality in our own predefined terms. Quality, the way we define it generally, is ubiquitous, is anywhere. You know, there is a new definition of quality. And that, in my opinion, disrupts every industry, every business, and is a challenger for every company. Quality here, not in cheap, less expensive. And that brings more people into the market. Quality not in terms of fancy engineering accomplishments, but in easy to use. I know how to use my flip phone. Quality in terms of something very different. Not exclusive, you know, you must, membership has its privilege type thing. No, quality in terms of ubiquity, availability, anywhere and anywhere. These are the competitors, I think, that we see around. Now, how does it look? Here are the two types of challengers that I would like to see. The first one are the disruption competitors. We've talked about that for many years now. They optimize the value chain of their company. And then we have the deep dive competitors or challengers. They optimize the customer value chain. I truly believe if you think from that ecosystem perspective, that customer value chain, You get to consumer insights that really have a lasting impact. This kind of competitors have a different focus. Over here, they focus on value. You know, you've got a BMW stick shift with 700 functionalities. You know, there is more value to that. The mindset is more is better. You know, better engineering should translate into more profits. I question that. The deep dive competitors, they think differently. They think about volume. They think about large markets. They don't segment markets into pigeonholes. They look at the big opportunity space. This kind of competitors, they also have a different emphasis on competitors. Over here in the red and the yellow zone, you always think of beating somebody. You know, the whole idea of disruption is about, you know, I must beat or disrupt somebody. I think that's a wrong mindset. It's not about disruption. It's about deep dive. It's about competing against non-consumption. I think when you start competing against non-consumption, bringing new consumers into the market, you have a value proposition that is actually more lasting. You know, disruption competitors are all about market sharing, versus deep dive competitors create markets. It actually creates voice. It actually creates messaging. It actually creates communications in a category. It happened with Flip. You know, it happens with the iPhone and the smartphone category. It happens with the music category and iPod came. It happens in every industry that this is the kind of communications that really creates new markets for it. And here's the reason why this ought to matter for us so much. In a situation like this, in a global conference like the IAA. You know, it took 20,000 years to bring 1 billion consumers into the world economy. 20,000 years. It took another 20 years to bring the second 2 billion consumers into the world economy. And the prediction have it that it takes only another 5 years to 2015 to put the 3rd billion consumers into the world economy. Now, I don't mean people who just can buy a mobile phone and therefore count as part of the world economy. I mean truly an expensive consumer market. Truly people who participate in the world economy. If you currently operate or sell something on eBay in America, eBay is an e-commerce platform, you are competing with anybody, those 3 billion in the world. This is where the opportunity is. This, in my opinion, is the one thing that changes categories, industries, and how we as CEOs and marketing managers need to compete. Quickly, a few guidelines, what I think is in store for us. Number one, we must capture the ecosystem. We must comprehensively understand the context of consumption, not merely consumers on product attributes or emotional benefits. We must understand this particular process. Every one of us have a set of goals. I don't need a higher quality car. In fact, quality bores me. I need somebody who solves my problem. I live in New York City with a problem in car. We need to find new research methods. If we start the old ways, we will fail to discover the opportunities we have with consumers today. This is Henry Ford, who once said, if I had asked customers what they wanted, marketing research, they would have said they wanted a faster horse. Yeah? We must stop thinking in terms of our products under the arm in search of consumers and try to understand that ecosystems. There are plenty of methodologies around today. Number two, we must find new ways of building brands. Martin Sorrell said it so well in the last 3 words of his presentation. He said, at the end of the day, we are all here to build brands. But there is a new way of building brands. Think about it. In the old days, branding was taking a product and creating some emotional messages around it. creating love brands. There was, in the old days, branding was about taking a product, the yellow on the left side, and adding value to the product by emphasizing certain attributes. Functional attributes, emotional attributes, self-expressive attributes. The ultimate driving machine. Hello. You know, that used to be the old branding game. And I actually think that branding game will be still important in the future. But there is more to come. And more to come means we should not just think about adding value through branding and communications and great creatives to the product, but we should add value to the context. You know, when you think about marketing, we need to be the ones that come back with a consumer insight, not say, hey, Flip looks so cool, but we need to say, Flip helps me to integrate or to get a particular video up on YouTube in 6.7 seconds because it integrates in how people live their ecosystems around technology with a computer and a USB port and a dial-up line to send something upstairs to the net. Think about this. Nike is one of the greatest brands in the world, has lived this amazing aura of technology through performance, you know, the authentic American athletic shoe wear for running and whatever. But Nike doesn't bet on the old branding game to build their brand. Nike's biggest success, in fact, over the years, is not to focus on the product, shoes or apparel. Nike focuses on running, on what people really care. Nike with Apple together actually engineers the Nike Plus system, a website that allows you to record, and a technology that allows you to record how much you run, how long you run, where you run, and so forth. Nike doesn't offer the shoe. It offers value in the context. Materials, sensors in shoes, an iPod recorder, progress tracking, online tools, and so forth and so forth. And you know, here, you tell me, here is the statistic that really knocked me off the socks. And that is this. You know, they said, they found in research that anybody who participates in Nike Plus is actually anybody. 40% of people who participate in Nike Plus switch from a competing shoe to Nike. Now this is really selling. You know, try this with your CRM applications or advertising messages. You know, it needs to be integrated into this particular kind of system around the world. So that's my second one. Adopt a new way of building brands, valuing the context. We also need to find new ways of communicating. New ways of communicating like challenger brands do. You know, I call it connecting with consumers because it's not just about communicating. You know, we need to stop thinking about 360-degree communications. You know, this idea that brand is in the center and we need to choose media and all sorts of communication channels and vehicles around the brand that communicate the brand in a 360 degrees, including digital. That worldview of integrated marketing communications has run its course. You know, it's been 20-some years that it worked. We've got to rethink. Challenger brands think very differently. They think not about 360 degrees communication. They think about 365 days communication. You know, we need to stop thinking about being campaign-centric. Because when you are competing as a challenger, you don't have the money and the funds to withstand against market leaders. You come up with innovative approaches. 365 days communications, I call it. I give you one example that really struck me just recently. There was this survey of what are the biggest brands in the Facebook world. Last year, 2009. Now remember we had a new president last year in America. And so what is the biggest brand in those days on Facebook? Number one was Obama. Yeah, I know that, you know, we live this in New York. Number two was Coca-Cola, of course. But now the number 3 spot on Facebook really surprised me with beyond imagination. Number 3 book was Facebook. Was Nutella on Facebook. I said, wait a moment, I know Nutella from childhood. It's that Italian brand, that hazelnut sort of thing. In America, we have peanut butters and stuff. We don't have Nutella. But yet, last year, Nutella was the number 3 brand on Facebook. I studied this a little bit more. I said, what is Nutella doing here in America? I've never seen it really. So I looked at Google. I found that there are 5 million Google hits. I tried with every other major brand. Not any other major brand has 5 million Google hits. I went on YouTube. There are 5,000 videos loaded up on YouTube in America. Then I went on Flickr and I looked at how many photos there are around Nutella. I found 17,000 photos on Flickr. People loading up Nutella. And their relationship with Nutella, a hazelnut spread for your bread. And I called the company and I said, how is it possible? You have all this attention, in America, among consumers, 365 days, where people spend time loading up photos on Flickr, searching for Google 5 million times. Going on Facebook to visit Nutella. Hello. How is this possible? How much money do you spend on digital? They say, nothing. I said, hello? They said, nothing. They said, well, how much do you spend then to create it? Maybe some PR or anything. They said, not very much. $300,000. I said, hello? $300,000? You get all that? They said, yes. And we didn't do anything about it. I said, what do you mean? We didn't do anything about it. They said, we didn't start this. It was a fan of Nutella who started the Facebook site. It was a fan that created it. No agency involved. Now imagine how this happens. A product that launched in America with that kind of marketing communication. If we as a community of advertising and advertisers and advertising professionals would put our collective intelligence on this kind of efforts, we could multiply tenfold that kind of effort and could really help our clients with it. This is how challenger brands compete in communications. We did some research recently about challenger brands and how they compete. One thing we found, challenger brands have an amazing ability to create what we call social currencies. And it is not just PR. It's creating communities. It's creating identity. In fact, here are 6 forms of communicating. I would not rather bore you more with my research. Those are the challenges, in my opinion. I think my main message is this. We are living, whether you are in bakery or you are in vodka, whether you are in the technology field or you are in services, whether you live in Russia or in Germany, anywhere, independent of developed and developing country. Martin Sorrell said it so nicely. We live in a very different world, in which change is not something of the Japanese world, of 30 years of products shipping to America, slowly, gradually improving the quality. Today, quality is ubiquitous. It is everywhere. Today, challenger brands don't compete on disrupting a market leader. They compete on deep dive. And that means understanding very deeply that ecosystem of consumers. Understanding what ticks in the 1,440 minutes a family in Russia. How do they live their life? And how is that translatable as a global proposition to connect in a new way in these new communications? That's my thought for you now. Having said so much, I now have the privilege of getting one of the greatest panels that I've been allowed to moderate on stage and invite them to join me in this dialogue about challenger brands and market leader brands and get the perspective of 4 very distinguished individuals that could add some lights or further lights on this question on disruption and deep dive and challenger brands. So I stand here to this particular point and perhaps start introducing each one of the panel members. I ask them to come sit on the table here. Thank you.